Legislators are considering a new bill prohibiting transgender surgeries for minors. A Casper College bareback rider who was trampled at a rodeo last week is improving dramatically. And the tomato soup pool is not a great place for lunch in Yellowstone. We'll take a look at these stories and more today from Wyoming's largest news organization. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily. The Wyoming legislature will for a second time consider legislation that, if passed into law, would prevent minors from receiving transgender surgeries in most scenarios. Political reporter Leah Wolfson says a new bill for the 2024 session comes on the heels of legislation that was brought in 2023 that would have done something similar but more far-reaching.
I spoke to Representative Lloyd Larson of Lander, who's the lead sponsor on this bill, and it does a lot of the same things that Chloe's law did last year, not as far-reaching though. So it does prohibit minors from receiving transgender surgeries in Wyoming, whether or not they have parental consent. Current law allows them to under parental consent. But what it doesn't do that Chloe's law did last year is invoke a lot of penalties against medical professionals for performing these surgeries.
The family of Austin Broderson, the 19-year-old Casper College bareback rider trampled during a horrific wreck at the National Western Stock Show Rodeo last week, says he's doing better every day, but still has no use of his left arm. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean spoke to Broderson's uncle, who said Austin's intensive care unit status has been downgraded and his mobility as a whole has improved dramatically.
Austin is doing unbelievably well after what is probably one of the worst bareback riding wrecks that people can remember. He is sitting up longer, eating more food. He still can't move his arm. That's going to be a big question mark. Even if insurance covers all the medical bills, he's got a very long road to recovery ahead of him. He's broken bones from his head to his feet.
The GoFundMe campaign started for Broderson already had more than 500 donations, totaling just over $77,000 as of Monday afternoon. A pack of wolves had a deadly standoff with a lone bison near Yellowstone National Park's Firehole River this weekend. Wildlife photographer Michael Cohen captured dramatic pictures of the encounter, which Cowboy State Daily's Mark Hines says show in graphic detail the Yellowstone wolves are getting better at preying on bison.
And this was a full-grown adult bison. It's not really common for wolves to prey on them, although I've heard from some people that some of the packs in the park, in Yellowstone National Park, have started adapted to where they're kind of specializing in bison, and so this was maybe an example of that. So just kind of a cool. We got some great photographs from a photographer who was there.
I'll be back with more news right after this.
The weather's turning oh so frightful this time of year, but those excavation projects, they will persevere. I'm Jan Warren for One Call of Wyoming, here to remind you that no matter how big or how small your digging project is, contacting 811 2 full business days before you begin is required by state law. So stay safe unwrapping presents, not utility lines. From all of us at One Call of Wyoming, happy holidays.
As WYDOT is again planning to build out a statewide EV charging network across I-80, I-25, and I-90, potential station owners across the state say the plan is too shaky to invest in. The federally funded program to build out an electric vehicle charging network across Wyoming's interstate system still leaves a lot of questions to be answered, according to energy reporter Pat Mayo.
The businesses aren't getting overly excited about this because it seems like the state needs to, as one person said, they need to get their ducks in a row.
Last May, Wyoming's EV program was placed on hold over concerns the state could be stuck with a hefty bill if unprofitable stations are abandoned. There also was concern that the $24 million offered to Wyoming by the federal government won't be enough. And anyone hoping to grab a bite at Tomato Soup Pool in Yellowstone National Park will be disappointed and hungry. The Tomato Soup Pool, which looks like a giant basin of the creamy Campbell's recipe, is among many thermal features in the Rabbit Creek group near the Midway Geyser Basin. But as Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports, the feature has been closed to visitors for going on 8 years.
It's a series of pools near Midway Geyser Basin, so near Grand Prismatic Spring, that are very deeply brick red, and they're not too hot and they're not too acidic. So it's very similar to tomato soup, which I guess might be partly the reason why it's called Tomato Soup Pool. But it's not accessible now. It hasn't been accessible since 2016. It's kind of the primordial soup of what Yellowstone was before the boardwalks and it became a tourist destination.
And that's today's news. Get your free digital subscription to Wyoming's only statewide newspaper by hitting the subscribe button on CowboyStateDaily.com. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.